In case you're new to our class, I record the class at 8 o'clock live on Facebook because we have several people who watch and participate on Facebook. You used to, but now you're here.
All winter.
But now you're here.
Yeah.
So that helps people that are participating online. And then at this time, I record it on my phone so that I can upload it onto YouTube because some people don't use Facebook. And so we've had a few that have done that. So anyway, don't get nervous. You're not.
I'm fine.
They can't
I'm
see
here
you.
last winter. So.
They can't see you. It's all. Okay, so let's make sure we're in the right place here. We started. We started last time. We started a couple weeks ago. We began reading a small portion out of the Prophecy Answer book. This is a Dr. Jeremiah book. It's not his latest book, his newest book I've listened to, and I don't like it as much because it talks more about the times after the rapture. At least I'm hoping it's after the rapture. And it's, I get scared and worried. I don't like that fearfulness. I don't like to be fearful about the end times. And I recognize that if we trust God, that we have nothing to be fearful about, right? Because he's going to take care of everything on our behalf. But still, I have a hard time. So this book I find to be more encouraging. Hey, good morning. So we've been reading a short section out of it. It's got like little one-pagers. And so today's passage is the question. He answers a question. So he asks a question and then he answers it, a brief answer. So here's the question for today. Oh, by the way, Eve ordered these books. They're available in our church library. You can check them out. And I think she got more than one, but I think they're on display and available in the church library. But you could buy it for like $6, $8. It's cheap. So if you have an interest. Okay, so for today, I've been just going in order and doing the little one-pager. So today, here's the question that he's going to answer. Will the Jews ever realize the fulfillment of God's covenant to possess Israel as an everlasting possession? Okay, will that ever happen? Here's the answer. The prophet Isaiah asserted that it would happen. He prophesied that the Lord would, quote, set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left. That's in Isaiah 11:11. God also addressed the issue through Ezekiel when he said, I will take you from among the nations, gather you out of all countries, and bring you into your own land. That's in Ezekiel 36:24. So the fulfillment of those prophecies was set in motion May 14th, 1948. Anybody here been around in 1948?
Yeah.
May 14th, 1948. Okay.
39.
That is when.
29.
All right. May 14th, 1948. Do you remember what happened on that date?
Mm-hmm.
What?
The Hebrews took over from the British.
U.S. recognized the new state of Israel.
Right.
That's exactly right. On the evening of that announcement, there was a popular radio commentator, Lowell Thomas, and he said in his broadcast that Americans in every part of the country would be turning to their Bibles for historical background, enabling them to understand this day in history. And indeed, as prophecies found in Isaiah, Ezekiel, Matthew, and Revelation show, both the Old Testament and the New Testament pointed to this day when the Jews would return to the land promised them and initiate fulfillment of the ancient prophecies. The Israeli government established the State of Israel, thus fulfilling the 2,500-year-old prophecy recorded in the Bible. And we talked about last week the land that they are in. And it's kind of cool that this timing of the questions that he's asking aligns so well with our teaching because it's the same land that we're talking about. Hello? Hello? Wake up. Coffee break time. Oh, Did it come on? Oh,
I
there it is.
remember the celebration in the church when
Do you?
Grandma
Nice.
talked about it.
Nice. Okay, so here we have the Israel in Old Testament time map. And if you remember, I forget which map it's on. Maybe it's this one. Yeah. We last week talked about the land that Israel is on. I'm going to try to get this in a good position. Remember that we went back to, I think it was in Deuteronomy, where it described the land that they were going to possess. And it goes from the Nile, which is over here. Here's Sinai. Here's the Nile River. It's supposed to go from the Nile all the way to the Euphrates. And from the Great Sea over here, just over these mountains, this area. That was the area that was prophesied to belong to Abraham and to his children. So there's another world map over here. And later, if you want to look at it, it has modern, and it has the modern nation of Israel right here, this little piece. But here's the Nile, and here's the Euphrates, and here's the area that they were given. So did the children of Israel go into the land when God sent them there? What happened when they started to go into the land?
Giants.
12 men went down to spy on Canaan, 10 were bad and 2 were good. What did they see when they spied on Canaan? 10 were bad and 2 were good. Some saw giants big and tall. Some saw grapes and clusters fall. Some saw God was over all. 10 were bad and 2 were good. Right? So what we saw was that they got afraid, and then they we can't go in. Who were the 2?
Joshua and Caleb.
Joshua and Caleb. And God, part of the punishment at that time that we read about was that God was not going to take any of that generation in. And at this time, we're now down to the point where they're dying off. That generation was alive there, is dying off, including Aaron and Miriam, which we saw pass last week. So when we look at this map now, they were supposed to come into this land. They traveled over here and wandered around in the desert. Not wandered around. I shouldn't say that, because they didn't wander around willy-nilly all over the place. They went from place to place that God led them, but the pillar of cloud and smoke. When it says it wandered in the wilderness, what it's saying is that they had no land of their own. They had no place. So they had to keep moving to find food and water. So in the land of Israel that we see now, that is the nation of Israel, is a little tiny swath of the land right here, right in here. Just a little swath of land right there, compared to what Israel was supposed to take. Okay? We're going to be looking at this map. Yes. Hey, Eve, how are you today? Come on in. Oh, I keep... This is the one I want to do. Okay. So now we are talking, the children of Israel have been over here in Kadesh Barnea. That's the main place where they were at. When they came out here, they kind of went through the desert of Paran. They were down there by it doesn't really show that on this map, sorry. They were down by where they'd come out of Egypt, and they were down in that Sinai Peninsula, and then they came up, and the place they stayed the longest and were at most often was this Kadesh Barnea, in that area, because it didn't belong to anybody, and it was away from all the main roads. Okay, so this is saying then, what David Jeremiah is saying is that prophecy was fulfilled. That was in Scripture. They did have their own kingdom. But now I'm going to read you the second page because it goes with the first. Ready? Here's the question. Is Israel's presence in her land today the final fulfillment of God's promise to regather his people? The answer is no. What is happening in Israel today is primarily the result of a secular Zionist movement, where Ezekiel wrote about a spiritual return of God's people to him. And this is what it says in Ezekiel chapter 36, 24 to 28. For I will take you from the nations, gather you from all the lands, and bring you into your own land. Moreover, I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit within you. I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you will be careful to observe my ordinances. You will live in the land that I gave to your forefathers, so you will be my people, and I will be your God. Now, I can see where that has not yet happened. The return of Jews to the newly refounded nation of Israel is the first stage of that regathering, but it certainly does not fulfill the requirements of a spiritual return to the Lord. From the moment of God's promise to Abraham to this present hour, the prophecies concerning Israel's total possession and blessing in the land remain unfulfilled. The most dramatic events lie ahead of us. And so we still have more to see with the land of Israel and that area. We talked about the red heifers last time, and anyway, they're getting ready to build a third temple. They're preparing for that, and they even now have the red heifers that they need to do the purification ceremony. They have 500 men who are prepared as priests, been trained and know how to handle the different sacrifices and elements that need to be taken care of. And they have the red heifer that they're hoping will be able to qualify so that they can purify all the items of the temple and the priests themselves so that they can do the work of the temple. But that's not about turning their heart to God. That's not the spiritual turn, right? There's that piece still waiting to happen. So I'm kind of excited to, well, I'm not really. I kind of hope I'm not here when it happens.
Does the current political position over there fit anywhere into all of this? Or does anybody know? They just brought up Netanyahu again.
Yeah, the scripture gives us the shadows of what we're going to see, a 10-nation group that's going to group against, and all these things are little bits and pieces that we have a glimpse of, but we haven't seen, and you can find, even David Jeremiah and others will give you a list of the countries that are going to be a part of that 10-nation group because they see them in play already. But the truth is that the scripture tells us prophecies that we don't recognize until they happen. Just like when Jesus Christ came the first time. They had all these prophecies about Christ coming. And then when it happened, that was when they began to understand the prophecies. As we see the end time events happening, we're understanding more and more of the prophecies. I was born in 1960, and I can remember when I was a kid, people talking about how could it possibly be that everyone would know about something that happened in Israel? Remember that passage, it says the whole world will see the witnesses and that thing. And I remember that because I remember everyone saying, yeah, there's no way that's possible. How could that ever happen that everyone around the whole earth would know at the same moment? Yeah, well, by the time I got into out of Bible college, in fact, I was 20, 30 years old, we began to have these phones that could do these things. And now I feel like that's like a nothing. I understand that completely. There's also a prophecy that describes this insect that can fly up, and it has, the way it describes it, the shape of it and everything, like a dragonfly kind of a shape. And it describes the head of a man, but and I'm thinking to myself now, that's like the modern helicopter pilots with if I were someone who had never seen something mechanized like that and tried to describe it, I would describe it that way. And so I think that there are things that are, pardon? Drones. Yeah. There's so many things that have happened that you don't understand until it happens, because God's telling you about or showing these prophets things that they have no foundation to understand. And so I think that there's a lot that's going to happen that by just us being aware of the scripture, as it falls into play, we're going to go, ooh, isn't that interesting that there are 10 nations that have created this axis of evil? Oh, isn't it interesting that there's some guy over in Israel standing up in the temple saying he's the new God? There's so many things that are predicted that when they happen, we're going to go, oh, there it is. That's it.
Is that writer have any idea of the damnation?
Yes.
He does.
That's one of his things. You know who else does a real good job of that is, okay, what's his name? He wrote 2 years ago, The Tipping Point.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, what's his name? That was a great book, too.
Yeah, I have it on my phone. It's called The Tipping Point. What's his name? I'm going to try to go here and not lose my